All right, so we are live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the 20th episode of Celebrating the Brand Ambassador. And I'm very excited to be here with Natasha Sofia and Earlecia Rochelle. Hi, ladies.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. I am excited, and I'm also, because this is gonna be like novel for me, because I know I normally get to do a preliminary interview, and today we're just going for it. So I'm gonna learn some new stuff today. All right, so I always like to start off with just a standard question: what is your current role and your responsibilities? Natasha, I'll start with you.
So my current role, I'm Natasha Sofia, is National Director of Education Advocacy at Davos Brands. I'm what you consider kind of like a Swiss Army knife for Davos. Yes, Davos is in Switzerland too, so it makes sense. I do everything from education to cocktail development for anything from distributor to chains to on-premise. I manage Halo accounts nationally. I work with the marketing team closely building strategies, and I also manage one of our the strategies in social media for one of our brands. And I also work with the sales team building strategies and tasks on sales goals as well.
Wow, so you really are the Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Earlecia, you?
Hi, Earlecia Rochelle here. So I am the National Ambassador for St Germain. I cover all of North America, and I actually am expanding to some global markets as well, which is super exciting. But I've been with the brand for 2 years. And I think same thing, right? So ambassadorship is such an interesting role because you do so many different things. Like there's no one ambassador position, right? So for St. Germain, I work very closely with our brand team. So a lot of strategic positioning for St. Germain, both on-premise in terms of trade, advocacy, and also consumer strategy as well. I'm responsible for building out our education tools. So I've built our global advocacy platforms, which are rolling out this year, which is super exciting. And I'm also responsible for building out our new ambassador program, which will also be starting in June. So we have a totally new brand ambassador program, and I've developed everything from the KPIs to the programming to recruitment. And then, you know, the normal ambassador stuff. So face of the brand in national media, and also working with bartenders on education and visibility and really understanding who we are as a liquid.
Wow, both of you have such diverse roles. I mean, you're doing some of the crossover work, but also having multiple different responsibilities, which is probably one of the benefits and detriments of working with smaller companies, because you do get to learn so many things when you are part of when you're a small team. You get thrown in like, here, we need somebody to do this or do this. And I'm sure you probably, you know, being hardworking women probably volunteered for some stuff and started doing the job even before they asked you to do the job, which is something a lot of people talk about here. Is like, do the job you want and start doing it. When it comes in, and we're going to get to the next question, but actually both things you guys talked about is strategy, which is something that is not taught. You know, a lot of people, you have to learn about it. You know, when I remember the first time I heard the word, you know, you have to make it scalable. I was like, I'm sorry, what? What do you mean? Because you have these like, you know, amazing ideas, right? You know, you're being super creative and you have all these things and has all these bits and parts. And they're like, yeah, but you have to like compact that so we can roll it out into 12 cities or 24 cities. So you have to start thinking long-term and creating project plans. Is this something that both of you kind of had to learn on the fly and you've like started getting into it, or did you have some mentorship maybe from some senior management who also said, okay, this is good, but let's take the next steps? Earlecia, I'll start with you. Like, you know, is that something? Yeah.
You know, so that is a really great question, because I think it's one of those things, like you mentioned, that no one really teaches you and you just start to learn. For me personally, I really wanted to dig into brand strategy in terms of traditional understanding of branding and marketing. So, you know, I read the books, I've taken classes, I really do use the traditional models of branding and marketing and apply that to my work as an ambassador. But it was just a natural sense of, I didn't have a direction in terms of understanding terms like, scalability. I would be in these meetings, these national meetings, and they were going way further beyond than a local market program, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I really wanted to be able to speak that language and to also present programs that were going to be dynamic enough and robust enough to be rolled out, globally, or to be used in another market. So I did have to dig down and really pick up some education, some traditional education, really understanding branding and marketing. But I have to say it was one of the smartest things that I did, because now I'm at the place where I am creating global platforms, which is, not something that a lot of brand ambassadors can say, even at the national level. So for me, it was a really great strategy to really get some of that traditional education of branding and marketing as a field and discipline.
No, absolutely. Do you have any, I don't know if you have off the top of your head any books that you've read, or if you want to think about it from one, or any programs you've taken?
Yeah, well, I've taken like digital marketing courses here at Bacardi. So St. Germain is owned by Bacardi. And, digital is taking the world by storm. It's like we've all discovered that we've had computers for the first time. COVID really did propel us to a lot of companies to really beef up their understanding of digital transformation. So we partnered with eConsultancy, and this was, a global push for Bacardi, and they have some free courses actually that you can take. And so I took advantage of that and did a fast track digital marketing. But there is a book, and I cannot remember the exact title. Oh no, I can remember the title. Yes, it is Brand. I'm gonna get the book because it's like I'm gonna get the book and give the exact title, but it's something about like brand strategy for creatives. And honestly, I randomly picked up this book, and when I tell you, I go back to this book every time before I start writing out any kind of planning or brief. It is such a great book because it really does speak to me as a creative, but really using the foundation of branding and marketing to really set up that conversation. So I do want to get the title of that book exactly, because I really do think it was very beneficial for me.
Yeah, no, I would love for you to share that, because it is something that you have to learn. Like when I left Diageo, I came from the marketing side and I went into the brand ambassador side and the mixology side. And for 10 years, I kind of was doing all the camera work and all that kind of stuff. And I lost a lot of those skill sets. And then I went over to Anheuser-Busch, and they were like, we want to make you a global manager. And I was like, fantastic. And suddenly I'm working with people that have Harvard MBAs and all this stuff. And they're talking words that I have not heard or hadn't used in many, many years. And I was like, oh, I'm screwed. I was like, but I was very lucky. I had a lot of good mentors. I had people from like Starbucks and Shake Shack working with me, and they were teaching me all these things, as skill sets, because I was creating programs around the world, like in different continents and different languages. And you had to make them scalable, and they also had to be translated. And but now I always wish I had this course before I worked for Anheuser-Busch. I'm getting my MBA now, but it's called the Power MBA. And it's an online MBA course. It's only $1,000, but it doesn't sound like you're going to get great quality, and it's amazing. It literally, I'm doing it every single day. It was created by people who have their MBAs, they're business people, and they're just giving you the information that you need and taking you through section by section about scalability, marketing, consumer segments, and really understanding it. Because I'm about to launch my own product, so I want to make sure I understand all these things. And I'm like, if I understood all this before, I would have killed it at Anheuser-Busch rather than like just struggling to stay above water. So no,
and what is the name of the program again?
It's called the Power MBA, and it's taught by a group of people from Madrid, actually, but it's in English, and it's fantastic. I highly recommend that you can do 15 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, and I am learning. So I've been taking it for the last 6 months. I'll be graduating in another like 3 months. because I've just been on it. But yeah, it's very, very good. So thank you. It's, you know, because on keeping your education up is really, really important, especially as a brand ambassador. You know, just staying at that level if you want to keep moving to the next. So that sounds fantastic. So please share that book because I want to get that book. Natasha, I don't know if you had similar experiences or what your experience has been like.
So just going into the educational part, like, you know, going back into those big words and everything that was going on. And, you know, one thing was like, you know, learning how to build things that you can replicate in different markets with different teams. And that was something that I was like, okay, how do I figure this out if I don't know the language, if I don't know how to actually put this on paper in a way that everybody that reads it knows exactly what I'm talking about. And it pushed me to go into the educational part. And, you know, I'm really grateful for this platform called Coursera.
Coursera. Ooh, I've heard about this.
Yeah, so Coursera gives you access to classes from any type of subject that you're looking for, from different types of Ivy League colleges and just colleges around the world and universities that are incredible. And I found a few courses from Brown and from different places on like introduction to marketing, introduction to digital marketing, how to do brand strategies and all of this. And I was like, okay, and pandemic really pushed me into to getting obsessed about it because like I'm that type of kid that the teachers always thought like she's not paying attention, and here I am like bullet points writing exactly everything that you say because I don't have to look at my keyboard, and I'm like, so yeah. I'm like listening to these classes and taking in as much as information as I could, and I realized that with this pandemic I just had the time that, you know, possibly wasn't lended to me before. I didn't lend it to myself to actually like immerse myself in this. And it changed my whole outlook into the work I do. And like you said, like sometimes now I look back and I'm like, wow, if I would have started building these programs with all of this information, it would have been so much easier. But I think that my biggest takeaway is that, you know, just furthering your education and continuing to look for things that you can do. The good thing with Coursera is that you can do a lot of these courses for free. Like you can just like review them without having to get the certification. You know, you can get the test as well, and you get tested every quarter or every few weeks about like a subject, but you don't need to do it. But if you also want to get the certification of it, that you could put it on your LinkedIn or anything, you can pay anything from $50 to $150 depending on the course. So you can review, so you can review like over 100 and well, I did like 16 in the past year. And those 16s, like, I think I only like got certified for 6 of them, but 10 of those I did for free, which is really accessible, especially like, you know, going through times that like monetary uncertainty is real. Yep.
No, it is. And no, it's exactly. So getting those degrees, because a lot of people say, all right, you're in a brand ambassador. Where do I go from here? You know, and it, you know, you ladies sound like you've already started establishing yourself into the next position, even if your title is brand ambassador, but it can keep expanding and working with the brand teams and having that advantage of actually working side by side. You know, when you work for a company like when I work for Diageo, you lose that because we work for an agency and we don't spend as much time. In the beginning, I used to spend a lot of time with brand teams, but as they grew, they kind of separated us off. And they kind of, the brand ambassadors now, they barely know who the brand team people are, which is crazy to me. But it's just how they operate. It's a very separate entity, which is a very interesting way of doing business. So you have a great advantage for the companies you are working with. And it sounds like you're taking it all the way, which is fantastic. Actually, before we go on, just so we get, you found the book? What's the book?
Yeah, so it's Creative Strategy and the Business of Design by Douglas Davis. It's an excellent book.
I will put it in the notes for the recording after this is done, so it's in there. And actually, before we do that, but this we have more eyes on this. What we're all talking about is, if you ladies, I don't know if you want to do this, but we'll get more people viewing. If you go on my Facebook page and share it to your Facebook page, so that way people will see the stream on all our pages. Because it's a lot of fun when people start throwing in questions. You ladies are much more popular than I am, so I'm not as cool.
Not even.
Well, so while we're doing it, so everybody, they're going to share, if anybody, the person who is watching, they're going to share it to their page. We get more views on here. And I'll definitely put that note of the book into the notes, and also the Coursera in there as well as the Power MBA, because these are all really great resources. And also and we're going to talk about social media in a little bit. I took a great social media course before the pandemic hit. I was already trying to up my game. So what I wanted to start off with, one of my favorite questions to ask people, and I think where people most learn a lot, is, becoming a brand ambassador obviously has a lot of challenges. And, especially if you're transitioning from the bar industry into that world. And I know, Earlecia, you were a brand ambassador at Goose Island, but you also came from the fashion industry, and you probably, different skill sets. But as we said, this job is very complex. So what were the things you found, like two or three things you found difficult in your first few months as a brand ambassador on the job, that you would like to kind of help others, say, hey, don't stress about this. This is what you can do. So Natasha, I know we were talking before. You want to start?
Yeah. So I think like I was telling you before, one of my first ones was, so I started as a brand ambassador when I moved to New York from Puerto Rico. So coming from the bartender background and just going into the brand ambassador world, that was one challenge. But my other challenge was, Spanish is my first language and English is my second language. And anybody that knows me from back then knows my English really sucked. It was really bad. Like, I would look at you and I would grab my purse and I'd be like, what do you call this? What do you call it? And they would be like, purse. And I'd be like, oh, interesting. I thought it was bad. And it was just a big challenge in that way, just like from the linguistic way, but it also was a challenge in communicating into a sales team and trying to convey the messages, because I was also like, 23 and coming into this and like, okay, I want to send you a recap of everything that I'm doing and everything that needs to get followed up on. And I wanted to be very proactive of that. So I would send this email that looked like a novel, like a paragraph this long of like everything that could have been 3 bullet points. And I saw that nobody would reply, and I would never get engagement from the team, and I would never get follow-ups on the things that I wanted done. And it was very frustrating. So I started like asking for help. Tinica, that works at Bowls, saved my life, because I talked to her. I was like, oh my God, I'm having so much trouble communicating and nobody's really like engaging with what I'm doing, or I don't think they even understand what I'm doing, and being so passionate and young. And I was just so frustrated. And she just asked me, like, send me your emails. And I would send her my emails, and she would send them back like 1/3 of my email and a few bullet points. And that alone, just her doing that alone, helped me understand like what words she swamped and what words should I be using that would engage replies. And then I would send that email forward to the same team, and I would get answers like immediately. Everybody like, oh yeah, of course, we'll do this. And I was like, so communication was a big challenge for me. And that's something that I feel like learning how to ask for help and taking advice and criticism was something that was huge, because it literally just changed the path of my career, because I probably would have gotten frustrated enough to quit at one point if I would have felt like that. But just asking for help, taking that mentorship and guidance and going forward with it was something that was really helpful. And I know that other people have mentioned this on here before, but another thing I was challenged with, and I found really challenging, was presenting to peers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's the worst. Presenting to peers.
Yeah. It's hard because like I wouldn't mind presenting to like a room full of executives and C-suites. Like, that's not scary to me. Presenting to my peers was even more scary, because I would study. I would stay up nights and days before a presentation to a group of friends, reading the same books I've read over and over, just so I didn't miss a detail. And then I would go into a presentation, and the anxiety, besides the social anxiety that one gets normally, let's be realistic, the anxiety of just like missing a word, missing a date, missing like a subject or something important from the messaging that I'm trying to convey would freak me out, because it would just give me like a imposter syndrome freak out where I'm like, I'm a fake, I'm doing this wrong, I'm doing the wrong thing. And just that was the biggest challenge. And then I realized that like you're never going to be perfect. And if you're on stage and you forget something, or there's something you don't know and you get asked, you just have to be honest and say like, hey, I don't know that right now, but I'm going to find that information for you. And instead of just like trying to make it up or anything, just like being honest was like the biggest exit of that panic attack.
No, I think that's a great lesson, because it is, I think all of us still suffer. I still suffer that to this. I mean, I will over prepare for a peer presentation. And especially now that I've gotten older, there's an expectation that's a little higher. You know, it's like, you know, people have this level of expectation, and I'm like, crap, I'm okay. Like, you know what? I'm not an expert on anything really. I'm like, I just learn information, and I like to moderate things and get to know things, but I freak out. I hate having Don Lee in my room, because Don Lee is the one person who will criticize me like relentlessly. He'll make a list. Here's the 5 things you got wrong. And I'm like, oh God. So when he's in my room, I have to make sure. And if I don't know something for sure, because my biggest fault was saying things, I say things with confidence, right? So I'll be like, this is it. And people are like, oh, Elaine says this is it. And he's like, people will believe anything comes out of your mouth. So if you say it wrong, they're going to believe it. And they're going to pass that information along. And I'm like, you're right. I should make sure, like, if I'm unsure, that was a lesson I had to learn, was if I'm not sure of something, to say that, like, I think this is what it is. I could be wrong. And be honest about that. That was a people.
Yeah. We need the type of person that keeps you accountable, because like, if you also don't have that constructive criticism, sometimes you don't know where to better. Like sometimes I'll leave a presentation and I'll look at the pinpoint person and I'll be like, is there any feedback you got for me? Like, what could I do better?
Right.
Yeah. And nobody ever gives it to you. Not, at least not as harsh as I've ever gotten from Don Lee. So I'm thankful to him.
I totally agree with Natasha. Certainly presenting in front of peers or people that I highly respect, or even people that know more than me, honestly, definitely would get in my nerves, because you know, I fell into the bartending, hospitality side of the business. That's not where my original industry of career was. So there are so many things, even to this day, that I do not know. And so having to present in front of, you know, people who had literally studied this craft for a decade certainly would make, like, just unravel me. But I think you just get used to it, right? I love what Natasha said about being honest. And I think honesty and transparency and realness goes so much further than trying to know everything about everything. So I really love that answer. I think also, I think the 2 things for me was, number one, really understanding the business and the function of a brand ambassador. I think we all see what the job of a brand ambassador is. And because it is so varied from different brand or different organizations, you walk into this brand ambassador role a lot of times, or I'll speak for myself, trying to be the brand ambassador that you see. And until you really understand what your function is, what the purpose is, why there has been an investment in this from an organizational level, it's really difficult for you to, I think, be super effective, right? So if I think what I'm supposed to be doing is being an amazing presenter and knowing all of the gatekeepers and having them in my, you know, Rolodex and all of that, but I'm not meeting whatever the sales goal is, or whatever, you know, the key messaging that needs to be understood on like a broader level. When I go back to my organization, it's like, you haven't done the job, right? So for me, it's like really having a clear understanding of what the function is, why do you have this role, and what are you expecting to be accomplished from that role? And I think it's not even just knowing that, but also really having open conversations with your companies and your employers, because it's not a one-way street, right? And you explained how Diageo is functioning. Every company functions differently. But what I've also seen is that there's a huge disconnect between advocacy and what's happening on the business level, and sometimes what's happening on the marketing level. So I think it's the job of the brand ambassador to help bridge that gap, right? Because we're in the field, but we also we're also being exposed to the back end, what's happening with the business, what the 10-year plans are for the company, this, that, and the third, right? And so really having the courage and the boldness to have those real conversations. I know that there was a drink strategy that I knew was not working on the field, right? And it was very scary to go to leadership and say, hey, not saying you guys were wrong, but it's not working. So
but you are.
What can we do, right, to help pivot this, still keep whatever the focus was and why you wanted to position this at the forefront, but really putting our consumer and trade first? Because if what my job is at the end of the day is to help move product, right? And it was hard for me. It was honestly really hard for me to accept that in the beginning because I'm a creative, I'm an artist, and I was really caught up in the romanticism, and I am out here, saving the world of cocktails and artistry. But at the end of the day, marketing teams are there to definitely create different ways of selling product. That is what we are here for. And when I really understood that, I'm like, okay, I can still do all the things that I'm skilled at and all the things that really make me excited about brand ambassadorship. But if it's not moving the product in the right way, then it's going to be hard for the business to understand my impact. So I think when you have those two things coming together is when you really can be very effective in your role. And no one tells you that. I just think there's so many things no one tells us as ambassadors. You kind of just have to get out there and, burn by fire to figure it out sometimes.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. You were another guy. I was telling Natasha that I created about to launch in the next couple of weeks, a online training academy for brand ambassadors that tells them all the things that nobody ever tells you, because it's even impossible as brand ambassador managers to have all that information, because it kind of just happens. There's a lot, there's so much that you have to share, and it kind of sometimes impromptu lessons. So a lot of the things, having conversations like this with people, it's like always like making sure I'm like, ooh, making sure that's in there. Yep, that's a good point. Yeah, making sure. So, Earlecia, you had really great points about that. And knowing that you have to sell, no matter how creative you are, if you want to, one of the things I always recommend to people is like, if you have a creative idea, you have to make sure that it's easier to sell it to the team to get a budget if it has a sales component to it. Like, what is this going to do to then connect sales? Like, how are you going to connect sales? Is it like
this brings ROI like this?
Yeah. And it's not always easy, because your creativity might just be building brand awareness, but how is this going to lead to sales? Somehow? Like, is somebody going to get educated at their bars and there'll be recipes? So they might bring in the brand because they had a great time at your event, and you're going to follow up with them, and whatever it may be. It's like, there's got to be that sales component, because without it, we don't have jobs.
We do not.
I think that piggybacking off Earlecia's comment, I think something that was also, something really spectacular to learn was, being a brand ambassador isn't what it looks like on Instagram. It isn't what it looks like on social media. There's so much work that goes behind the scenes. And there's also kind of like this fine line of a brand ambassador is still a person that lives a life, or tries to live a life outside of the brand world. But also, it's not just going out and having an expense account. There is a lot of work done behind the scenes. There's a lot of strategic planning. There's a lot of, sales components, marketing components, and a lot of things that, nobody wants to see your spreadsheets on Instagram. Nobody wants to see your PowerPoint. If I started going on Excel and putting everything live on Excel all day, I don't think anybody would follow me at all, because it's quite boring.
No, a lot of it is quite boring. No, to your point, it is quite boring. And I think also to Earlecia's point, and Natasha, I'm sure because you're working with a small company, going to the brand teams and actually asking those questions, sitting in those meetings, be like, I would like to know what the 5-year plan is. I would like to know what the 10-year plan is, because I want to make sure whatever I'm doing on the streets lines up with whatever you're planning, so that we're in tune. And if I don't know about it, I can't help you execute your plan. Like, my job is make you look like a rock star. as a brand ambassador,
Exactly.
I'm supposed to make the brand manager look like a rock star. And so to credit to both of you for recognizing that and putting it out there. So which is really, really awesome. I do want to ask you though, the one question we didn't get to yet is, what are the things you learned in your first couple of months in the job that kind of gave you anxiety?
Wow, that's really,
or just one thing you're like, hey, I wish I had known that. Like if I had known that, like I would have did it differently, because that used to stress me out.
I think that's a really great question. And I think it also has to do with what I learned not to do is also what I learned to do, which I believe is answering your question. And one thing that I didn't take in consideration, because I think when I first became a brand ambassador, I was really focused on being a brand ambassador, like being the best brand ambassador. I also was around like legendary brand ambassadors, the Colin Appiahs, the Camille's, the people that people literally relate them to the brand that they work for. And I learned that was not the kind of brand ambassador that I was capable of being. It's very hard for me to detach from who I am as a human. And I think for me, it was about aligning myself with brands that I naturally had an affinity for so that I can naturally represent the brand in an authentic way. But I think in the beginning, it was like I was everything in my world was centered around the brand. The colors I wore, the colors of my house, what I ate, what I listened to, what I did, like everything was just around spirits or around the brand. And now I've gotten to a really great harmony where it's about who I am as a holistic human. And I have a connection between what I do and who I am. So what I learned was that who you are is very important and it's very special. And if you can find a way to bring that person to your work, I think your work has a layer of deepness and a layer of specialness that is just something to really be protected. So for me, it was just bringing more of myself as opposed to bringing this version of a brand ambassador or representative that I thought was the ideal.
That makes a lot of sense. It is hard, especially when you have those kind of legacies around you to you have to bring your own way of doing things for every brand that you work on. And it's got to be, and that actually leads me to a question about building your personal brand, right? Because it is essential to growing your career. And I think that's something you two ladies have done a really great job of doing, is having your own personal brand, but utilizing the platforms you've worked for to kind of continue growing yourself as a person. So people get to know you as they get to know the brand as well. Do you have any, and how, I actually would love to talk like philosophies of how, I've given seminars about building your personal brand, but everybody has their own philosophy of how it works for themselves, like things that they do, how they work with the brand, like how you work with St. Germain, but you were also building Earlecia, and it seems like the brand really supports you. So I would love to hear more about that. Like, is there any fine lines that like rules that you give yourself, guidelines?
Yes, absolutely. So I've actually been doing quite a bit of, I would say, cerebral work in terms of personal brand building, because like I said, in my earlier days, it was really all about building the brand, and my whole world was really centered around the brand. And so now, because I'm at this place of just really harmonizing what I do with who I am, I think the first key for me was really understanding my core values and what I wanted to stand for and what I wanted people to connect to through me. I think oftentimes when we think of our career lives, we don't think about bringing our core values to the workplace. But the thing is, you cannot detach the things that make you feel whole from your work life, because usually what happens is you end up getting burnt out and then you hate your job. But it's not really that you hate your job, it's just that you're contributing so much time and energy to something that doesn't actually connect to who you are as a core person, right? So for me, I really had to get really clear about what my core values are. So, you know, artistry, beautification, these are things that are super important to me. So I find ways, disruption is something that's super important to me. Progression is something that's super important to me. So I find ways within the St. Germain world that also naturally connects to what is important to me. And I really spend the time cultivating programs around that, or cultivating aesthetics around that, so that people are connecting to the brand, but they're also connecting to a part of me that I am, you know, that's a part of my core value. So that's one way. The second way, I have a strategy, like my social strategy is no longer 100% brand. So what I do, I have like a certain percentage of posts that are about my travels. Travel is very important to me. It's actually one of the key things that developed my understanding of culture, my understanding of the world, and why I am a really strong marketeer, is because I understand cultural currency. But I wasn't really talking about travel anymore. It's like, as soon as I started to become a brand ambassador, it was all about liquor. Everything was about alcohol. Everything was about spirits. But spirits is a part of a lifestyle. It's a part of your, you know, what you do, right? And so I have a percentage that I talk about travel. I talk about beauty products. I do talk about cocktails and recipes and events that I'm at, but it certainly isn't 100% my IG account, for example. So having that almost reclaiming of my social spaces has actually been really healing for me, and really exciting to have different parts of myself that I feel very comfortable sharing, and also incorporating that in what I do as a brand. And St. Germain has been extremely supportive of that. Where we're actually working on a bigger digital social piece. And, you know, we had the conversation, would you like me to have a separate St. Germain account that's just focused on what I do, you know, with St. Germain and as a brand ambassador? And they were like, you know what? No, we actually love the way that you're able to bring the worlds together. And we want you to continue doing what you're doing. So even getting, you know, support to do more of that with my company is truly amazing. Because I was certainly at, you know, I think it's also too, again, being transparent and being able to have those conversations. You know, I said straight up to them, I am really excited about building these other areas of my life on social spaces. If you would like me to have a separate IG, that's fine. But this is what I'm going to be doing on my own personal Instagram. And then we were able to come to a place where we both felt very comfortable with the strategy that we wanted to move forward with.
No, I think that's great. The transparency is such a great, and having that conversation and actually sitting down and having an honest one and saying, this is what I'm planning on doing. And I have no problem having you incorporated, but I'm also comfortable making it separate, I think is a great lesson, because I think from a lot of people I speak to, it's a huge struggle for them. Like the brands, you know, they can't even say they work for the company. They have to have you know, I'll look up at their Facebook accounts and it doesn't even say they're employed by the company they work for, because they're not allowed to have any personal stuff on there. If they have their employment there, they can't have any personal stuff on there. And I'm like, wow, like that's a huge disconnect for them. I was like, the fact that I can't even tell you work for a brand on Facebook because you're not allowed to seems a bit crazy to me. And I do finally want to dive into the social media more, because you guys have both, ladies have done some amazing stuff on there. Natasha, do you have any thoughts about like building your personal brand, you know, and things that you've done?
So I think, you know, Earlecia, I am so 100% with everything you just said. And I think that when I started being a brand ambassador, I think one of the biggest things that I didn't do, that I learned to do, was to have that conversation, because I found myself in a situation where my personal social media was being judged for my work, when like I could give you a recap with all of the pictures and everything, but then it was like, well, you were having fun doing this and that. That's not work related. I saw it on your post from January 22. And I'm like,
whoa,
it's my personal account. And that's what pushed me into opening my first like separate work account, where I like started Madame Geneva when I was at Madame Geneva, just as a social account that would separate me from my work. And that would put me as a different person, right? In the eyes of a corporate world. And then when I started with Davos, I automatically did it. And I did find myself struggling to find my identity, because like I started on Instagram like 10 years ago, and it was mostly like surfing, yoga, bartending, like, you know, just me being me without really thinking about what I was portraying, just sharing a little bit of my little crazy world, right? And what I love, and what's honestly like what makes me me. And then as I started working as a brand ambassador in a time that, you know, the only thing that I had to go off was the people around me and how they portrayed themselves in social media. And I think at that time, a lot of us were trying to do the same thing. So I felt guilty to one extent to put anything personal. So I would just put everything work. And I also wanted to reflect the amount that I was working through my social media by overposting about work. And I think that
I feel you.
So at that point, I was like just noticing that I had lost myself, like my personal self, my real self, who I really am, and my ethos through that. And just separate the account. And I love taking pictures. That's like one of my biggest passions. I am an amateur. I'm trying to take classes, and I learn from anybody who's willing to teach me anything. So a lot of it is also trying to share this passion over taking pictures of cocktails in the world, but also reflecting the work that I do and being myself. So I'm in this little battle that Earlecia has already tackled, and I love learning and hearing from you because I'm in it. Like, I'm trying to learn the balance. I love posting the pictures of the cocktails because I take them, and I love sharing that. It's what I love, but I also want to share travel because it is cultural currency, and it is what has taught me to build the type of strategies that I build now. So,
well, I have a question. I have an idea. Well, one of the things and I would love to hear your latest thoughts about this, because Natasha, it's a great point. There is a struggle between that, like, you know, what you're putting out there and what your bosses. I mean, one of the things I actually, and I'm, you know, older than both of you. So, you know, social media was still kind of new coming up, but, you know, I just didn't friend anybody from my work on my social media accounts. I have nobody on my Facebook, nobody on my Instagram. If I want them to see my picture, I will tag them, the brand specifically. But other than that, I mean, they could see my accounts, but it's supposed to, you know, like, so like, especially Facebook, it would be just friends. It's like, so they were not in my friend group. I was like, I don't care if you want to see my social media. I'm not friending you because I don't want to hear that. If you saw me last night, like having a party and, you know, like a rock star, you know, back in the day, and I'm going to get shit tomorrow. I'm like, no, it's not your business. I was on my own personal time. You know, so, but Instagram, obviously it's harder. They can still see you, right? Or else you make a private account, which doesn't help you build your personal brand, which makes it a lot harder. So I think from Earlecia's point, you have to have that conversation. Yeah. Have you had the conversation? Yeah.
I've had the conversation with, so for example, when I've been very vocal politically for years, possibly since I started in college, that I found kind of like where my political identity was. And the moment that I started being vocal again in the platform that I had already consumed for just cocktail world, and then I started being vocal about what I believe in, I felt terrified because my bosses are on there, my CEO's on there, like everybody's on my account. And I just had to like, I remember beginning of pandemic, I just called my boss and I was like, okay, I just want to tell you before you hear it from anybody else, this is what I've been posting. This is what I believe. And this is how I believe. And it's not going to change. And this is what I stand for. And my boss goes like, good for you. I support this. I believe in you. And I'm like, I'm sitting here just like waiting to get fired. Like, and he just goes like, no, you do you. I'm really glad that you have a voice and that you know how to use it. And I just stay there like, thank you.
Yeah. No, but it's amazing having that conversation. That's fantastic. Good for you, and good for your boss for being so supportive.
Yeah,
That's
and I
awesome.
think honestly, it goes back to the conversation of those core values, right? If for instance that conversation didn't go well, clearly, not having a job is not certainly what I'm telling people to do, like quit their job. But if you are working for a company that cannot appreciate or respect your political views, you probably are going to have some kind of friction at some point. So I think, for us to start thinking about what our company's core values are, what our core values are is just a really important fusion point that I think so many of us in any career field really don't think about on the upfront, right? We look at the package and the benefits, but like, does this organization actually like coincide with what you believe in terms of humanitarian and just core values? I just think it's a really important conversation that we don't talk about enough.
No, Lynn House from Heaven Hill said it great. She said it really well. She said, before we were talking about, we're giving advice to brand ambassadors or people thinking about being a brand ambassador. And, one of the shared advice is always like, make sure you love the brand that you're going to work for, because you have to talk about it all the time. But the other one was about, she brought up a good point. It was like, look at your company's core values and do you align with them? Because you're not going to want to work for a company whose values you don't believe in. And sometimes it's not easy to see what they are as a corporation. I mean, they might have their corporate ethos and all that stuff, and then you go in there, it's completely different. As somebody who's worked for some of the largest corporations in the world, I can tell you that. They have one ethos and they generally believe it, but internally things might be a little bit,
right.
Different. Anheuser-Busch. Yeah. So it's like, but I think it is important. And it's something now, I think back in the day, I don't think anybody ever thought about it, but I think now it has definitely become much more important. And I think there are those options if you have that option. I mean, sometimes people just really need the job, and maybe it's just something that's a starting place and then you move on from there. This has been so great. So many great lessons here. I was going to say, I want to talk a little bit more about on the social media front, more about, you have, I mean, and I know that so Natasha was thinking this too. She's like, her feed is so beautiful. Like, do you have a professional photographer? Like, do you bring her, like, what do you do? Like, cause your feed is like so professionally done.
With the clicker, like, what are you doing?
Oh, my poor friends. Honestly, I enlist my friends to take photos of me, but I always I create a mood board. I have like my looks already. I have how I want to be positioned. I send them the mood board, and then I have them take photos of me. So usually it's a friend taking photos of me, or, I take photos of myself as well. But yeah, I really have gotten into the whole aesthetic feed social media thing, and I'm definitely nowhere near where I want to be, but I am excited about the progress that's been happening. So yeah, it's my friends, my poor friends.
No, but so you plan it out beforehand. So you'll take a bunch of photos and then you'll then maybe post them out into your feed intermittently over time.
So yes and no. I'm not that proactive. I'm certainly not planning a month. No. I'm certainly not planning a month ahead. I say I plan a week ahead. Is usually what I'm doing. I'm planning a week ahead. But I have, because I've identified my brand's values, I have buckets of where I'm gathering my content, right? So I know that I'm gonna post something on cocktail recipes. So I already have, my brain's already working in terms of, okay, what's coming up next week? What do I have? In terms of my travels, I know when I'm going somewhere. So then I think about, okay, what shots do I want to get with that? And then I start thinking about the colors, so okay, I'm gonna, focus on greens, but I have this cocktail that also green. So I'll pull that in. So it's really all just kind of happening in my head. There's a little bit of pre-planning, and yeah, I think
that's great. Having scenes,
planning a little bit longer.
Now, having themes is really important. Like knowing what your aesthetic is going to be and the buckets you're going to put out there is something, because, you know, it's something I've been learning. Like, okay, what are my 4 or 5 things? And I have different things that I put out there. It's really important. Something I didn't know. But it's like, you know, the aesthetics are amazing. The fact you think about colors is fantastic.
I'm a color person. I mean, you can see by my walls.
Oh yeah.
I'm very connected to like color theory. Color has always been a really important.
I'm still remembering, Earlecia, one of the last cocktail menus that I saw you make before you went into the brand ambassador world. I forgot the name of the restaurant. Was it
maybe?
Which one?
Nilo Hotel.
Yeah, I think so. That it was a very art-centric, colorful, creative, tasteful menu. And I think that was like my first interaction with seeing how vibrant your creativity was. And and now like your Instagram and the way that you curate it kind of like reflects to me as the same that you curated that menu.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, it really drives me. Certainly like color, textures really drive me. And I think, you know, we were having the conversation about like us earlier. I lost that part of me for a really long time, because you move into brand ambassadorship and you're creating cocktail strategies, but you're not creating cocktails like every day. I'm not creating cocktail menus unless it's for, you know, a huge national event, which is like very rare. Maybe I do that 3 times a year, if that. And so I wasn't really creating in the way that really feeds my soul. And so Instagram has been a place where I've been able to tap back into that as of late. So thank you for noticing.
No, yeah, no, it really is. They are stunning. And I love your fashion bag. I come from a fashion background as well, but yeah, you put me to shame. So it's stunning, really is. The color coordination and amount of time it shows that you put some effort in there, and it is stunning. I was gonna say, Natasha, now you somehow, you know, 24,000 followers, which is an impressive number to have. And you said you've been on Instagram for 10 years. So even though you haven't had a plan, you seem to have done a good job of, who are do you know who your followers are? Like, you know, is it people all industry? Is it consumers?
So it's really interesting because it's not just one-sided, and you notice the difference in engagement by the type of posts that you make. You know, there's definitely people from the yoga background that I came from, and the like surfing, and then like one of my first brand ambassador jobs that was not industry related, I was a brand ambassador for Creative Recreation Sneakers and Insight Clothing. Okay. So like a lot of people come back from that like stylish world, which I'm not. I think that the pregnancy definitely threw the style out the window now, but there's definitely like a lot of different buckets of people that engage differently with my posts. There's people that really appreciate travel and like, you know, that have followed me from travel posts that they've seen. And I honestly have never had a real strategy. I started getting into it now, looking at online courses and listening to other people who have been really successful in pivoting their social media content to something a little bit more like Earlecia's beautiful Grandesque profile. But, you know, I've tried to work with tools like Planoly, where you can kind of like see how your posts will engage with other accounts, and you can with your kind of like set grid, and you can also kind of like pre-plan your post. And honestly, I know that there's all types of friends and people in the following. I really have never really thought about it too much. I just keep posting what I like and what resonates with me. What, you know, sometimes I feel like I overshare a lot, but it's because like, this is me at the end of the day. Like, I'm not trying to fabricate something. I'm just trying to just use this little space for me to share the craziness of the surroundings I'm in.
Well, you're doing a great job, and I'm going to look up Planoly. I think what I was saying. I use state future planning or something. I use a program now. It's escaping my head. what I use, because I was saying I'm not witty, so I can't do things. I have to plan things the week before. I like Sunday, I pull out photos, and I've been pulling a lot of my old travel photos out because I haven't done anything in 2020, so there wasn't a lot to photograph. So I've been pulling out old photos that I never posted. I'm like, wow, I have so many photos I've never used of my travels and explorations, and I've been around the world 3 times over. And because I'm not good at posting things, because I can't do it in the moment, because it'll take me an hour. Like I'll be standing there like trying to do it with my thumbs, and people are talking to me, and I'm like, yeah, no, I need to sit down and actually plan it out. And yeah, so that's just me. But yeah,
also,
so yeah.
one more thing was I've never really believed or used in hashtags. And anytime that I started engaging certain hashtags and seeing kind of like the trend of certain hashtags to the subjects that I'm in, and the following that those hashtags have, and kind of like being more analytical over that, using them in the post has done all the difference. Like there could be a post that has no engagement at all, and then I'll like put some hashtags on it, and it will automatically get like a really insane amount of engagement. So I'm starting to be more engaging with the hashtags whenever I can. But
no,
that's
it's really
something
smart. No, it's really smart. I don't know if
believe
you noticed. Yeah, I was gonna say, in Instagram, if you pull up a hashtag, you can actually look, and it'll tell you how many people. And the strategy I've learned, if it's somewhere under, if it's over 100,000, you'll probably get lost in the feed. But if it's somewhere between like 5 and 20,000, you'll live on their feed for a little bit. There's a great woman. Her name is Hilary Rushford. She has like something like 200,000 followers, and she teaches a course on Instagram strategy. I took it at the beginning of this year, and it's fantastic. She's a real person. She talks about real like she's just a normal everyday. She lives in Brooklyn. She's a fashion person. Earlecia, you'll really like her. She does this whole thing, but she really teaches you the things that she's used to get to her 200,000 follower and how she makes a business out of it. And I just like it. She gives you really practical tips. I took the course. It was like, and it's a reasonable price. It was like $300 for her course, but it was like so worth it. I learned so many things from her, the really, really practical knowledge. Hilary Rushford, and I just like her. She's just like a normal, regular girl, like from Brooklyn, just chilling out and just be like, I have some information. I would like to share it with you. And this is what it's done for me. And she actually shows how it's worked for her. So which is really, really cool. All right. So I know we've been talking for a bit, but we still have some questions to go. So I really want to get into it. All right. So one of the things we haven't touched upon is, all right. So Natasha, let's talk about, you're now managing a team of brand ambassadors, right? So do you have any philosophies about managing brand, like how you manage your team that you like to follow, like hands-on, hands-off, any strategies that you've put into place that makes you, be a good, effective manager?
So right now our team is furloughed, but we're in the process of bringing them back. And I'm not like a micromanager because, there's definitely a personality component that has to shine, especially in the beginning. I just give you the tools of like, this is how I want you to recap. This is how I want you to send expenses. This is your KPIs. And then this is a 30, 60, and 90-day battle plan that I have for you. And this is the and I go from there, and I try to visit them on a monthly basis, even regardless of starting or not starting. And there I kind of like gauge from, sometimes when I'm out with you, that first month and that first outing with somebody that's like your manager is usually like, super tense, and everybody's kind of like not being their best selves in that.
Yeah.
But I think that it's also a point where I try to see, because a lot of people think that they want to be a brand ambassador, and they honestly really don't, or it's not something that fits for everybody. So sometimes somebody has the potential to do great, but they don't really have the passion to go forward and to do that extra mile. And that's fine, because like, this isn't for everybody. So I think that one of the first things I try to do and determine is like, is this role a good fit for you? Is this role going to be something that you'll be able to excel, that I can give you the tools for you to be a better person and build a career out of this? Because I have, and been all by mistakes, and I did it taking advice from everybody, but without, a superior guidance directional. So I definitely want to give people the tools to do it, but I also want to be honest with them and tell them, like, is this really what you want to do? Is this something that you feel is a good fit to you?
No,
and I think that that's like one of the approaches that I want to take, and just be honest about it. Because like,
No,
once you tell me that you're really in it, we're going to go in it. I'm going to try to give you tools I don't have.
Right. No, I think that's really, really great advice. Or at least, I mean, I know you're not a manager at the moment, right?
No,
or
no,
you're not.
No. So,
but you have a manager. I was going to say you
Yes.
have a manager. So yeah.
Yeah, so the way that Bacardi works, most of our brand ambassadors, unless you're national, are hired through an agency. So our brand ambassadors with St Germain are actually managed by that agency. So I serve more as a mentor, and just helping them find their way. And then I'm responsible for building out all of the programming tools that they use in their day-to-day.
And but no, that sounds great. I look forward to hearing about the programming tools. I was gonna say, but you have a manager. So do you find for your manager, like, is there anything particularly well that your manager does that you really like why they're a good manager?
Yes. So I've had good managers and I've had really, really poor managers. So I would say from the great managers that I currently have, which is quite a departure, but we have a new VP and we have a new brand director, both which are fantastic humans. And I think one part of being a great manager is also being a great human. If you're kind of failing at the human part, it's really difficult to then manage other people. So I find, people who have integrity, people who are really committed to their work, and people who really want to see the best out of their team can be some really strong managers. I've learned so much from our new VP. Her name is Emma Fox, and she's been on the team for a year. And I have to say, she is as sharp as they come. She probably has all the answers, but what she does do is listen. She really has honed active listening. She listens to her team. She empowers us to make the decisions that we think are the best strategies and the best movement for the brand. And we are really seeing the wonderful results from that. I really see St. Germain evolving in such a beautiful way. And I think it was a needed growth that needed to happen for such an iconic, special brand. And I just think that the guidance of our new VP has just been amazing. So I think the biggest lesson that I've learned is, even when you're the sharpest one in the room, the way that you really build a strong organization is about empowering the people that you've hired to do the job, to let them do their job, and really helping to get them the budget, to get them the tools that they need to do their job, and supporting them along the way. So it's never going to be all on you. And the way, again, that you really build something strong is by really empowering other people to do what they do best.
I think those are great words of advice. And also the fact that she listens is learning how to listen is one of the hardest things. I think it comes with age, not trying to prove yourself. Thank you. That's really great. I was going to say, Natasha, for you, I was going to say not on the management side, but also the fact that you're managing a team, you're working in this industry, you're also pregnant. What are some of the challenges like for you? I know this wasn't a question, but you said it was cool talking about it. I think it is something important to talk about, because you said you've had some people say to you like, "Oh, are you going to stay in the industry?" And you're like, "Why wouldn't I?"
Yeah, it's my career.
Yeah,
yeah.
I've had a lot of questions coming, and you know what? It's something that we don't talk about that much. So I can see why these questions arise. I'm not like surprised by it, but I've had those questions where it's like, hey, so what are you going to do next? And I'm like, go on maternity leave and do the event we're coordinating right now. You know, it's something that a lot of people just think that just because you're going to have kids or because you go into the motherhood world of this life, that you're just 86 from this industry. And I'm here to say, like, that's not going to happen. I'm already working on the strategy of going forward with life and finding a balance with a family. Like, yes, I'm going to take my maternity leave and I'm going to enjoy it. I am going to grab roles and I'm going to them.
Yeah.
But that said, I'm passionate about what I do. This is my career. Like, this doesn't mean that, you know, I'm not choosing one or the other. I'm going to learn how to embrace both of them. And I'm going to ask help and guidance from Elaine, who has done this. And I'm going to ask
I've been there.
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of women in our industry who are still in it and have had kids. So, you know, I'm also going to ask for guidance because this is all going to be a lot. And I know I don't know anything about this, but it doesn't deter me from what I'm going to keep doing.
No,
I just want to,
it really should.
When you posted the cocktail video, I mean, because what, you're 7 months?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a month ago or a couple weeks ago, you posted a cocktail video that you did in both English and Spanish. And your, you know, belly is definitely noticeable. And I was like, what an amazing move for her company to have empowered her to do this video in a public facing space, pregnant. I just thought that was just revolutionary because I don't actually think I've ever seen a pregnant woman in a public space doing something for a spirits company. So I just thought that was really quite profound. So thank you for posting that.
Yeah, I thought that was really, really awesome.
So
because tell us, what was it about?
So thank you. My coworkers are the best support team I have. We're a small team, but we're a really awesome, passionate team that try to support each other however we can. And my coworker, Persia, found this opportunity with Forbes, and she was like, making a cocktail video in Spanish. And I was making some cocktail videos in English and Spanish for Princess House, which is an online store that sells like really awesome house goods and home goods. And she was like, I have this opportunity with Forbes. Would you be interested in making a video? And like, part of me got really scared, Earlecia. Like, I was terrified. I'm like, I'm pregnant and I can't hide this belly right now. You're going to see it. Like, look at this face. But then I did it. And my coworker was like, I think this is so awesome. I think you should really find your power in this and just enjoy doing it. And I was like, you know, you're right. And it took away the fear of doing it. Cause like, you know, there's a line that I don't know. Is it okay? Is it not okay to do something pregnant? And I think that I put my own mental limitations in it.
Yeah. I think
like,
even not knowing what you're, sorry, go ahead, expand.
No, please go.
No, I was going to say, no, it is because, you know, you get looks for people. In fact, you even just roll into a bar, like people like look at you strange. Like, you know, it's like, oh, why are you here? You're pregnant. I'm like, I'm not dead. You know, I am carrying a life, you know, like no reason why I can't make a cocktail. I shouldn't be chugging cocktails, but I'm just, you know, I am making it. I'm still doing my job. I still have taste buds. I still know how to put things out there. There might be a little more emotion going into them because I have hormones streaming through me in a rapid rate. I might yell at you a little bit more because I'm all pregnant, but you know, there's no reason why you can't go forward. And I continued my career. I mean, my daughter is 16 now. I had her she was born in 2005. It's when I will say it's not becoming a brand ambassador for the first time and becoming the head mixologist at the same time after you gave birth to your child. Probably not the best move I've ever done in my life, but it was like, the industry was moving in that direction. And I just said, whatever, I have a kid. I said, Dylan used to be strapped to me. You know, I'd be taking her to South Beach Food and Wine, Aspen Food and Wine, South Beach. Like she literally, my company, I will say one thing, Diageo and Ciroc did really well, was they supported me. They're like, I said, listen, they wanted me to go to certain things. I was the premier expert on Ciroc. I traveled around. I used to be Diddy's like co-partner in that, and not co-partner, but I trained his whole team and worked with them. And I was like, if they want me to go, I don't have a babysitter. Like my ex-husband worked in the restaurant business. I need to take her, and I need to bring a nanny. So like a babysitter. So they would allow me to take my babysitter and my baby with me on trips. Like, because I was like, I went to Tails. My daughter swam at the pool at the Monteleone when she was 1.5. Like, you know, it was yeah, exactly. You know, I didn't know it was like Tails was very new to me. So I was like, why are all these drunk bartenders in here? And this is like, you know, 17 years, you know, 16 years, 15 or 16 years ago. But they really support. So you do have to ask for help. And somebody, a company like, this is my reality. This is what I'm capable of. This is the support I need. You know, can we find the budget for it? And they did. They were like, Elaine, just expense it, like make it happen. And yeah, Dylan flew around with me a lot. She used to come to my office. She was sitting on my desk for the first 6 months of her life in her little playpen, because I didn't have any options. I was like, I need to take my kid to work because my nanny just quit or whatever it was. Like, they were really great. So I was really lucky in that. So you can do it. You just have to ask for help, and you need a team. You need support. Don't be afraid to ask. As a mother, you become a martyr. It doesn't work for you. It doesn't work for anybody. You got to ask for help from your friends, from your coworkers.
You said all that because I'm like, how do you even move forward?
Yeah, no, you just ask for a lot of help.
I'm really appreciative.
I wish I was in. If I was in Chicago, go ahead. You can do it.
No, I just said it's just weighing heavy. That's it.
Natasha, we can sit down and chat. I
what?
can talk you through a lot of stuff. I said I would gladly babysit. I love babies. I wish I could have had another one. So, but I am going to send you 2 books that saved my life. So I'm going to send them to you. You should definitely read those because they are like a great reference guides that will save you when like you're in panic at 3 o'clock in the morning. You're like, I don't know what to do. And you look it up. You're like, okay, I got this. I will send you the books. I saw that you're by the way, if anybody wants to get Natasha a gift for your on Instagram, you have your baby registry. I saw. I was like, oh, this is convenient. I can see what's going on. All right.
I saw my cousin and everybody in our family is having kids.
Yeah. You're cutting out. Why are you cutting out? Ooh. Oh, we have our. Thank you, Eric. Eric is one of our, and Anthony for tuning in. You've heard a lot of things. But yes, there is definitely, thank you, Eric. Yeah, there is a lot of longevity, and you can definitely have a family, and you can definitely, be in this industry. You change a little bit, and then eventually it all balances out. So, and we could definitely talk about this more. We'll do it offline. I was gonna say, so now that the world, because we're already at 3:20. What I do like to do, and Earlecia, I do want to actually ask this before we get off, because I think it was really important. You talk about weaving cultural moments, and I'm going to read this, into your brand activations. That's something you really focus on. Can you give us an example of some of the activations you've done that you've weaved in the things you find important in cultures? Yeah.
Yes, 100%. So I think overarching is certainly something that leads how I develop brand strategy. So for me, I see a lot of companies, even outside of spirits, that create programs and events with no insights to the audience that they're looking to capture. And it's all coming from a marketing assumption, but no real investment or effort into truly gaining those valuable insights, both qualitative and quantitative. And so for me, I've been very vocal about, if you want to create programming, we need to do the proper insights and, really get the information from those that we're trying to connect to and to speak to. So I would say that is my overarching connection to really making sure that we are connected to the culture, and that we are continuously communicating and really hearing from them what they need, because I'm no longer a bartender. Once I stepped from behind the bar, even though I understand it as a lived experience, I don't understand it from today.
Right.
Because I don't bartend every day. You know, I
Yeah, you
haven't
lose
bartended
connection.
in COVID. I don't even understand what that is to go through. So I can't create something that I think that I'm helping you with. I can't. You have to tell me what you need, and then I have to find ways to bring that to you.
How do you do that? Do you go and interview people? Do you like call people up or ask people?
Yes.
Like, how do you get those
Yes.
insights?
All of the above. So I'll give you an example. You know, last year we had, what do we call it? The uprising, or one of the many uprisings that we've had in the African American community here in the United States. You know, really triggered by the murder of George Floyd. And we saw many companies across North America and even globally really trying to figure out what their diversity and inclusion policies were, and, you know, donating money, creating programs to help all the people. And so, of course, Bacardi very much connected to the same, you know, wanting to make sure that we were communicating our messaging and supporting in dollars as well. But when it came down to the St. Germain team, we immediately got on a phone call. And at the time, myself and the brand manager at the time are both women of color. And again, that wonderful VP that I told you about who listens, she listened. And so what I asked for was the investment to do an actual research panel with bartenders of color, both in the Latinx community and African American community, and also business owners that were, again, from the AFAM community and from the Latinx community. And we really need to speak to them and hear them, because yes, am I a woman of color? Am I an African American Latinx woman? 100% I am, but I'm not a bartender and I don't own a bar. So for me to really create a program that I think is going to connect and serve in the ways that we really want to have impact, we need to talk to them. And so they did give the investment, and we were able to do that research panel across 4 markets. And we didn't create a program last year because we didn't have all of the insights. And now we are working towards creating a comprehensive program that is going to be focused on community building and access, but with true insights, really hearing and connecting to what the needs are of our community and how we as a brand can help fill some of those gaps, and also what areas we have the right to play in. At the end of the day, we're an elderflower liqueur, right? So you have to understand what place you have in contributing to the community. So I think that's an example. Also really supporting our grassroots communities. You know, we all want to be at the tails of the cocktails of the world and, you know, the BCBs of the world, but I think we also really need to be supporting our entrepreneurial efforts that we see a lot of our bartender, beverage director communities, spirit educators really starting their own grassroots companies. And so I personally supported Radical Exchange, which is founded by Ashton Berry. From the first year of her creating that conference, I have made sure that every brand that I was representing had a sponsorship and supported in that grassroots conference. And so I think it's really about also thinking about the resources. I work for a small brand that's owned by, you know, one of the hugest spirit companies in the world. And so I do have access to dollars. I have access to budget. And so for me, it's about how can I also help support these grassroots organizations that are really pushing progression and innovation, creating safe spaces, creating equitable spaces. How can we also really support that on a grassroots level? So investing in entrepreneurship and also really gaining those insights before I create any kind of program that is supposed to serve a community. I need to hear from them what they need.
No, I think that's really fantastic. The fact that Bacardi, and the fact that you're clever on you can tell your marketing degree and what you've learned in marketing is really working for you, because insights is a big thing. And a lot of people do jump too quickly. You know, they just jump, they try to slap a Band-Aid on something and move forward. And so I think it's really clever to really understand what the community wants by having those real conversations and talking to them. I look forward to seeing what the program is that is being developed, and supporting there's a lot of great initiatives out there that people are doing grassroots. So getting the brands behind them and knowing that you have that power and saying, hey, I have these insights and that the company is listening to you is really fantastic. So I want to wrap it up because we're getting to that hour, and I know how busy both of you are. So this has been great. I do usually like to wrap it up with the last question, to kind of share some of the insights of maybe a mistake you might have made. You know, it doesn't have to be something embarrassing, just something you might have done in your career as a brand ambassador that you now learned from, and you would like other people not to make that same mistake. Natasha, I'll let you go first. Sorry for you.
I think organizational issues in the beginning were my biggest mistake. Not organizing myself from doing my receipts, my expenses, organizing myself in a way that I would build a battle plan for myself for not only this month, but for the year. I think that as a part-time brand ambassador, it was one of the lessons that I learned and I carry with me that I try to teach others, pre-plan, submit your expenses on time and submit your reports on time. That's all.
Yes.
you do this, and this is possibly the key to success. And over-communicate. I think I didn't over-communicate a lot of my needs, thinking that I could do it myself. And I realized that over-communicating my needs was detrimental for me to get the right tools to do my job better.
I think those are really great words of advice. Earlecia, for you?
Yes, I would say blocking out time. So I think blocking out time on a day-to-day, calendar in terms of thinking time. There's so much that we do as brand ambassadors that isn't physical. Like I have to do deep thinking, conceptual thinking, planning, building, computer time. Make sure you go to your calendar and block out that time as well, because what ended up happening for me, and I think that's a small example, but then also on a bigger level, take PTO. You have it for a reason. Take time off, take your holidays. If you can, don't miss all of your family events. Don't miss all of the important things happening in life. It's really easy for us as brand ambassadors to literally work 24/7. And I certainly did that early on in my career, and I no longer do that. I take my PTO, I take my time off, I travel, I go to my friends' birthdays, I sleep. I'm no longer, at this point now, I'm waking up at 6 and 7 a.m. because I have global responsibilities. So I have global calls. And I'm really honest with my employer. I can't be up at 6 a.m. and also out till 3 a.m. So we have to figure out what the balance is going to be between what I am able to contribute from a brand, support, management perspective, and what I'm able to contribute as in the field, really, representing the face of the brand, because you just can't burn yourself at both ends. So I think we know the lifestyle is a hectic one for a brand ambassador, whether it's a travel schedule, whether it's the, indulgent meals or up all night, up early in the morning, but you have to take care of yourself. That is just the bottom line. It's non-negotiable. You will burn out. You will be miserable. So I think block out time, literally, spiritually, emotionally, take care of yourself and take the time.
No, those are great words
about it.
Don't feel guilty about it. You are entitled to your time off. I'm gonna say, Natasha, I'll give you words of advice as a parent. as your kids gets a little bigger and they start going to school, I used to not take my vacation. So often I didn't take my vacation. And one of my bosses gave me the best advice. He said, Elaine, just go away the same time every single year. He's like, when is your kids' spring break? And you can do this without kids as well. Just pick the time of year you want to go away, how many weeks. And so I always blocked off my time. So I would know, and that way you can start planning. I could literally plan my vacation 8 months ahead of time because I knew I was going away in April during spring break, during when my daughter was off from school. So I would know, like, we always went away 10 days in April, and we would go away another 10 days. I think it was like December, like whatever, Christmas, whatever it was. So like during the summer because she would be off. But I went away the exact same time all the time. So you can start planning all around. You can block out your calendar so nobody can book it in. Nobody, because you know they have events coming up, and then suddenly they're going to try to throw it at you. But if you already had it blocked off, there's nothing they can do. So it just became a habit. When I work for corporations, just go away the exact same time all the time. Granted, you can have impromptu vacations sometimes, but if you just have those two for your big vacations, literally your life becomes so much more manageable. You take your time, it's blocked off, and you can do so much planning, and you get better deals because you're so far in advance. But yeah, best things I ever did for myself.
Something I think Earlecia does, but I learned from a coworker, is that being a bartender, I forgot that there's holidays in the year that are factored in that we don't work. So yeah. I found that my coworker would take that long weekend and extend it by a few days with her vacation days. And I never even like fathomed that idea. And just seeing how she has the best quality of life doing that, it just taught me so much more to take advantage of those vacation days and just piggyback them into a Memorial Day weekend and all of this. Just like extend your lifeline, because during the year, you know, sometimes some months you just run dry, and that little bit can just help you nourish your soul.
Absolutely. You really do need to nourish your soul and block out time in your calendar that's for your own deep thinking. Like I always blocked off when I was a brand, Mondays and Fridays were my office days. If I could, like that was my time. And I blocked them like they were appointments. Like I had an appointment with a client or something like that. Like that was my time. I put it in my calendar. So if my boss tried to put it, it would just be blocked. Because you need that time, or else you're working every weekend and every single day, just doing stupid things like receipts and reports. And, you know, you need real time. You need downtime. Well, ladies, this has been great. These have been amazing lessons. It's been really nice getting to talk to both of you. I'm sorry we didn't have our pre-call to really have some deep dives, but this, I think, if anybody's watching this, I think they got a lot out of it. Thank you, Eric and Anthony. I know this is going to stay live on my page. It's going to stay live on yours, so feel free to share it. Stays up for 2 weeks, and I know we get a lot of views after the interviews as well. So thank you again, and I look forward to actually seeing you in person.
Yes,
I really like that.
For having us.
Okay. Have a great night and a great day, and yeah, we'll see each other soon, I hope. Bye, guys. I'm going to end the broadcast. There you go.